Some stories aren't just scary. They become memories that keep you up at night. This isn't just any tale. It's about a boy who claimed he was a demon. And every time his name was spoken 3 times, he appeared. They say some shadows don't just follow you, they live inside you. And yes, if you followed my old channel, where over 2 million of us shared the darkness together, then you probably noticed that journey came to a sudden pause. But the silence never lasts forever. This is a new beginning, with new whispers, new fears. Welcome to Whispers by Aki. If you were one of the sleepless, I hope you found your way back. He said he was a demon, a Whispers by Aki horror tale. This is going to sound weird, but bear with me. When I was in high school, there was a kid who told everyone he was a demon. I don't feel comfortable even writing his name, for reasons you'll soon understand. I'm just going to call him Patrick, even though his name sounded like something out of a Shakespeare play. He was extremely socially awkward, and he walked around with a super empty stare that made even teachers uncomfortable. He wore the same blank gray hoodie every single day. I'm not exaggerating. I'm pretty sure he never washed it, since he always smelled terrible too. He was decently short and pretty average looking, although you wouldn't be able to tell, since he always had his hood up. He never took his sunglasses off, even inside. Teachers eventually stopped asking him to, because he would never listen anyway. Now comes the weird stuff. He didn't have any friends, but had this weird tendency to adopt people. What I mean by that is, if he liked you, which he could decide randomly one day, he would walk up to you and say, "You're adopted," meaning you were part of his circle, or whatever. Apparently, this would make you safe from him, or something. That's at least what he'd say about it. He didn't really like that many people, though, so very few were ever really adopted. I was one of those few. Looking back, it was probably because he had a crush on me. None of us believed his demon spiel. Everyone just assumed he was a troubled kid, which he definitely was. Oh yeah, this all takes place in Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. Another girl I used to be friends with, Gabby, had also been adopted by him. Patrick's crush on her was a little more obvious. All my friends knew it. One day, my friends and I were chilling on the dugouts behind our high school, killing time and doing God knows what. It was me, Gabby, Laura, and Luke. I can't exactly remember how it happened, but the topic of conversation floated over to Patrick's crush on Gabby. We were all laughing about it, and Gabby was obviously embarrassed. I can't remember what it was, but there was a nickname we'd substitute for Patrick's name, because his real name was too clunky. This time, though, I distinctly remember Laura using Patrick's real name. The third time she said it, I swear on my life, Patrick appeared out of nowhere. He jumped on top of the dugout with a baseball bat in his hand. It wasn't scary in a typical sense, but it was one of the most unsettling things I'd ever seen, up until that point anyway. We quickly stopped talking, nervous that he might have overheard us. He didn't say anything though, just stared at us. I gave him a little wave, and he nodded in acknowledgement at me, before jumping back down to the ground and swiftly walking away. After we were sure he was gone, the 4 of us burst into laughter, finding humor in how weird the whole encounter was. On the inside though, I was still a little disturbed. The next incident I remember was significantly more creepy and impossible to laugh about. I was literally in Laura's house, and the 2 of us were hanging out in her room. Her parents were home. I'm not sure what exactly we were talking about, but again, Patrick's name was said 3 times between the 2 of us. Not 10 minutes later, we heard Laura's front door slam shut. Confused, we went downstairs to see if one of our other friends had pulled up. Laura was friends with everyone and her parents were super chill, so people came and went unannounced. Laura's mom had beaten us to the door though, We turned the corner of the living room and stared in shock at Patrick, who was just standing there talking to Laura's mom. She asked him what he was doing there, to which he literally replied, "I was summoned." Laura's mom made some small talk with him before politely asking him to leave, which he silently did. The reason why more alarm bells weren't going off was because Laura's mom actually knew Patrick and pitied him. Laura and I weren't as calm about the situation, though. As we walked back up the stairs, we talked to each other with horrified faces about how creepy that was. A few minutes later, we made the connection between the two events. He seemed to pop up when his name was uttered 3 times. I know how ridiculous this sounds, but we had both witnessed 2 unexplainable events, and we knew Patrick's history of claiming to be a demon. How else could someone rationalize what had taken place? We told all our friends about the incident the next day, and our friend group swore to never say his name 3 times again. Things went well for a few months, and I started to think maybe I had overreacted. That is, until one day. My same group of friends was hanging out at my friend Johnny's house. We were chilling in his back porch when the topic of conversation again drifted to Patrick. Despite all our efforts to convince him, Johnny refused to believe what we told him about Patrick. Even after confirming the story with the entire group, he was still skeptical. To display his disbelief, he jokingly used Patrick's name 3 times in the same sentence. To our dismay, when nothing happened, he grinned and told us we were stupid to believe something so ridiculous. As annoyed as I was, part of me was relieved that he hadn't shown up. I spoke too soon, because a few minutes later, Patrick jumped over Johnny's backyard fence. Johnny noticed him first and stopped speaking mid-sentence. The rest of us followed suit and went dead silent, nervous about what Patrick might do this time. We watched as he stared at us for a few seconds, before jumping back over the fence and disappearing out of sight. Johnny started freaking out and accused us of conspiring with Patrick to scare him. We told him that we literally begged him not to say anything. We sat in silence for a while, before Johnny eventually told us all to go home, clearly shaken from the experience. The last experience of what concerning Patrick was definitely the scariest and most disturbing. It was the only one where I felt like my life might have actually been in danger. A few months after the incident at Johnny's house, I was home alone one night. My parents rarely left the house back then, so this was a rare occurrence. I decided to take advantage of the situation and invited a boy over I had been talking to. He was kind of a tool, but so were most of the guys I talked to at that age. We were hanging out in my room, and it was lightly raining outside. After a while, he mentioned something about Patrick, which made me visibly cringe. He got confused, so I explained the situation to him. He burst out laughing and told me he was going to say Patrick's name to scare me. I begged him not to, but he did it anyway. Only this time, he didn't just say it. He literally screamed Patrick's name 3 times at the top of his lungs. There was no delay this time. The moment he finished yelling, I could hear the rain instantly pick up outside. A few seconds later, there was a flash of lightning. I started to freak out. The guy I was with actually seemed sorry and told me it was probably just an extremely unlikely coincidence. I cursed him out and ran to my window to look at the storm. I glanced down to look at my driveway and screamed when I saw a silhouette of a person looking up at my window. It was too dark and stormy to know for sure, but I was 99% certain it was Patrick. I shut the blinds and rushed downstairs to make sure all the doors were locked. After locking the back door, I saw that person again. Only this time, he was standing motionlessly in my front yard. I felt a panic attack coming on. I knew Patrick was going to find a way inside my house. I started screaming, "But I'm adopted! I'm adopted!" over and over again, hoping that would do something. I know there was no way he could have heard me, but my brain was all over the place at that point. The guy I was with ran downstairs a few seconds later and picked me up off the kitchen floor to comfort me. I looked out the window again, and he was gone. The storm was still coming down like crazy, but it's not like I was going to search the property anyway. The next morning, after that guy had left, I went out to inspect my yard. To my horror, I found something sinister in the far corner of my backyard. It was Patrick's hoodie, and wrapped inside of it were a couple random belongings of mine that I had assumed I lost. My parents were gone another day, and I was too scared to call the police. I figured I'd show my parents what I had found after school the next day, and they'd take it from there. I never had to. The next day, Patrick didn't show up to school. He didn't the day after that either. None of us ever saw him again, and no one knew what happened to him. My parents still live in the same house, which is something I think about a lot. I know this isn't your typical scary story, but I'm not sure where else to vent about this. A few people from school told me they caught Patrick hiding and eavesdropping on their conversations, which could explain how he was able to show up out of nowhere. As I've grown older and thought back on the whole thing, I think what makes the most sense is that Patrick was just a mentally ill stalker who followed me and possibly other girls around. Hence why he was always able to appear when his name was brought up. It skeeves me out just imagining him following me all over the place, listening to me. I don't even want to wonder where